Welcome to the Lead at the Top of Your Game podcast, where we equipped you to more effectively lead your seat at any employer, business, or industry in which you choose to play. Each week, we help you sharpen your leadership acumen by cracking open the playbooks of dynamic leaders who are doing big things in their professional endeavors. And now your host, leadership tactics and organizational development expert, Karen Farrell Rhodes.
Hey there, superstars. Thanks for joining in another episode designed to help you to better lead at the top of your game. You know, what comes to mind when you think of the term self-leadership? Self-leadership describes how you lead your own personal and professional life, right? It involves setting your course, following it, and then also course correcting along the way. And on today's show, I'm honored to have Dr. Benjamin Ritter, founder of Live for Yourself Consulting. He's also the former head of talent development, organizational culture, and learning at Technova, which is a manufacturer that focuses on the life science, biopharma, and healthcare industries. And I've got to tell you, he really brought the knowledge on this episode. There is absolutely no fluff here. All value bombs. We go deep into self-leadership, how to use it to impact your career progression, and he even supplies a model to help you have critical, influential conversations with decision makers that matter. So be sure to stay tuned for at least 2 minutes after the episode to listen to my closing segment called Karen's Take, where I share a tip on how to use insights from today's episode to further sharpen your leadership acumen. And now, enjoy the show. Hey there, superstars. This is Karen, and welcome to today's episode on the Lead at the Top of Your Game podcast. I am super pleased to have on today's show Dr. Benjamin Ritter, who's the founder of Live for Yourself Consulting. And he's also the former head of talent development, organizational culture, and learning at Technova. And Technova is a manufacturer that focuses on the life science, biopharma, and healthcare industries. So I'm sure that's fascinating. I'm sure a bit of that's probably going to come out on this show. And Dr. Ritter is also a leadership and career coach. He's, of course, a talent development executive, as I mentioned, values geek, international speaker, and also podcaster himself. So hopefully I'll get a few tips from him. But he's very, very passionate about helping leaders to be at their best and also to create a career that they love. So welcome to the show, Dr. Ben.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been constantly wondering because I hear my bio spoken a lot when I'm in these interviews, and I'm like, what is a career that I love? And it's such a great reminder to be like, I'm going to take a step back and go, am I doing the things I love? Yes. Okay, great. I'm here. Good.
There you go. And just, we had a chance to have a brief conversation before the podcast listeners, and we were talking just on that. And one of the things that Dr. Ben and I share is a love of being practitioners and working in a different variety of industries and environments. We never like a boring day, as I know you all don't as well. And correct me if I'm wrong, Ben.
Yeah, boring is something I've gotten used to. Like I had to train myself to be like, okay, it's good that I'm bored right now because it means that things are going well. But then I've made, and this is something I literally have on my phone, a boring list. And so it's a list I pull up when I'm bored to go, these are all the things that you love to do. You can go do right now because you're bored. That's good. And so I've taken this and put a little bit of process into it, and it's helped me make use of those times.
You know what? I'm going to try that, actually. I'm very rarely bored because I feed off of energy and people energy, if you will. But I'm going to have to try that because those times that do come up, I'm always looking for the next thing. And that would be a quick reminder. Okay, why don't you try that? You haven't done this in a while. So that's a great tip. Well, before we dive in onto today's topic, Ben, if you don't mind, would you share, for as much as you feel comfortable, share just a little bit about kind of your personal background and professional background, like where you grew up and kind of how did you get to where you are today?
Of course. And before I do that, I'm just going to do a tech check.
Okay.
So I see your voice like movements
Yes,
in the mic area, but I see nothing for mine.
I see yours. You're spot on.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
I'm spot on. Great.
yeah.
And so, as a lesson to the audience, if this does get kept in, as a leader, it's okay to do something you think might not be right if it's going to help things be right.
That's right.
So, a lot of my journey has been basically putting myself in uncomfortable situations to figure out how I impact the people around me, outside of how I feel about what I'm doing. And I think that's an incredible and important component of executive presence, because leadership really is how you impact the people around you. And too often we limit our ability to really impact others because we think we have to operate within a box, right? Based on our own stories. And so my background's in organizational talent and leadership development. And that all got started though because I was unhappy at work. Like it literally was just, I hated my job, but I was also a high achiever. I was promoted onto the executive team, but I went into work not to work. I went into work not to have conversations with people because I didn't see those people as important, which is one of the worst things that you can do, is basically waste time in a job because you think your job is a waste of time. And all you're doing is just compounding the issue. And so luckily I had kind of this epiphany moment that said, Ben, you're being the victim. You're blaming your organization for something that's your own fault. You're unhappy. Don't blame it on other people. Take control and do something about it, and choose to be happy. Choose to make the best of the time that's in front of you, and also be more intentional about what you're doing with your time.
Mm-hmm.
So that made me really stop and say, Ben, what do you like to do? And lo and behold, at that time, I actually was in an emerging leaders program. I received 16 months of leadership training. And the one person I looked up to in my career was the person that I got to meet with. He was my coach in the organization. He was managing the entire leadership program across all of our 13 sites. And we were having a conversation like, this is a job. You have a job. Tell me about your job. This seems so cool. Like this aligns with my desire for coaching. It aligns with my personal development interests. It aligns with the fact that like I'm a high achiever and super disengaged, and the organization is wasting me.
Yeah.
And I'm stuck in this place, and the leadership around me did not notice and also did not know how to manage me. And I said, I don't want this to happen to people like me ever again. And how can I impact this? And your job seems like it's doing that. And so I started figuring out how to get involved in those types of projects. I asked my boss to be involved with that department. And lo and behold, all is well. The story ends, and I have a beautiful career in talent development. Not the case. So we got acquired.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. No, we got acquired again. My whole career has been just crazy turmoil. So we got acquired again. By the way, in that position, I had 3 different bosses, and then we had 2 different CEOs, and then we got acquired 2 times. So we had 3 name changes, and then so everyone I was working with lost their jobs. Everything I was working on was getting centralized, and everything got stopped and paused. So I had to make a decision: stay unhappy with where I'm at, or go try to find a job in this space. Or when that didn't actually work, because I don't know what I know now, how to brand myself, in a way that is attractive to people when you're transitioning careers, I went and became credible. So I went and got back and went and did my doctorate. I studied the field. I became an academic, but I also then took that research and applied it into creating a new company and started building a brand, while I also looked for ways to build my brand inside organizations.
And if you don't mind sharing, what was your dissertation on?
The relationship between person job value congruence and intrinsic and extrinsic job satisfaction of senior healthcare leaders.
Wow. And what was one, I know there's a ton of learnings out of that, but what was one big takeaway you wouldn't mind sharing with us?
In individuals that are aligned with their work, their personal values are aligned with their job values, which is very much the truth in healthcare, at least in leadership. I would imagine actually throughout healthcare overall. Extrinsic job satisfaction indicators such as salary, benefits, recognition are most important, which was kind of a little mind-blowing to me, because I'm like, it's all about value alignment.
Right.
It's all about being happy and motivated at work. And I'm like, okay, hold on a second, reality check. If you don't feel you're getting paid right, if you don't feel like you have a balance, like you can go get a lunch, if you don't feel like you're getting recognized for the job that you're doing, it doesn't matter how meaningful you think that work is. It actually gets worse. Those indicators become more important the more aligned you feel at work, because then now you have the time to focus on those factors in comparison to the fact that, that you feel like you have meaning instead of not having meaning. Super interesting. So it's like, it's not this one sum, it's not this like all in one kind of thing. It's people feel meaning and happiness. They'll never work a day in their life, right? And that quote like bothers me so much now, because it's like, no, that's not the case. You always feel like it's work. You always need the general factors and aspects that come with feeling recognized and being in a livelihood and savings and etc. that come with having a job and spending your time working for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's important that employers understand that it's all important. And it does actually increase the responsibility of an employer if they want to retain and engage their employees.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good to know, because I think the theme is a little bit different right now, right? What people are saying is like, let's just give them all this lovey-dovey feelings, and
Yeah.
that's not actually the case.
And that's good to know. They know they're going to have to be multifaceted to truly be an employer of choice, right? That's kind of the takeaway.
Very much so. And that if you're in an organization that you're very much
Multifaceted focused, I should say. I'm sorry.
yeah, and if you're in an organization that's very mission focused, very values focused, and you're like, well, everyone just works 80 hours a week here, and that's the culture we have because we love what we're doing. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's great, but you're going to lose the people. Like, you're not going to attract the people that care about balance. You're not going to attract the people, like if you're underpaying them, that care about financial wealth. And there's a really great TED talk that goes over the fact that we severely underpay non-for-profit executives. They're severely underpaid. And it doesn't make sense, because if we want to attract the top talent, we have to pay top talent what they're going to get in the market. Because if not, they're just going to go get higher paying jobs because these individuals care about getting paid a certain much, and then they're just going to donate. It goes along, I think, with just general common sense, but it goes against some of the conversations I think that are happening around engagement and retention.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. I wanted to circle back really quickly to something that resonated with me, and this will lead into kind of our topic about self-leadership. You may or may not know that my last big gig before starting up my own firm was to helping to lead the global high potential leadership program for Microsoft. We had individuals at all career stages in the program. It was basically like the top 3.5% of the company globally, and about 4,200 participants worldwide in the program. And one of the most common areas of concern that we would hear from our high potential employees were that they didn't feel like they were being maximized for their knowledge, skills, and abilities. Something that you mentioned in the beginning when you were kind of giving your background. And me and my team spent a lot of time speaking to them and letting them know, the leaders want to see the best out of you, but sometimes they just don't know how to pull it out. To your point about how do you help them show up as their best selves and be open to, what they're truly bringing to the table and integrate that into the organization. So we talked a lot about how do you lead yourself to lead your others, whether it be your customers, clients, bosses, or what have you, in a way that pulls out some of those skills that aren't being tapped into, so that you're happy with how you're making impact on the job, and then they're happy to see, what you're being able to bring to the table as well. And that delves nicely into the whole self-leadership topic, because I do think that is a lens that a lot of super smart people really don't spend that time on. And so I'm really curious for us to dig a little bit into that. So let's start by letting you define in your terms what self-leadership is and why is that so important from your perspective?
Mm-hmm. I have one disclaimer to say to all the leaders listening before we dive into self-leadership.
Yeah.
We think that people will bring to us the problems that they have. And we think that if something's wrong, they'll tell us. If they want to work on something new, they'll tell us. If there's some issue in relationships, they'll tell us. If they don't have the resources they need to do the job, they'll tell us. We just think as a leader, they will. That is not the case. Like, it is absolutely, I'm trying. It's my mission, right? My mission is to get people out there to lead themselves, to be more empowered and accountable for their own careers. But as a leader, please understand, you are not getting the information you need unless you ask for it. And you have to ask like 3 or 4 times. And if someone tells you something one time, even in passing, and it's like a blip, it's like a 5-second comment, they think now that they've given you the truth, the commandment, the reality that it, like the thing that they need. And if you don't follow up on that, then you're a terrible leader. Like it's sad, but it's what leaders have to deal with.
That's right.
Okay. I just disclaimer.
That's right.
So now going into self-leadership. Playing off. Do you have anything to say on that before?
No, I'm
you
just
want to get on the
doing a
soapbox
virtual
with me?
high five, audience.
Okay.
He said it way more articulate than I could have ever, but he is 150% right.
Okay, I'm taking it. We're on the soapbox together.
Yeah.
So now we'll get into leaders. And this is a good transition from what I just said, which is if someone tells you something once, they think that now the leader, it's their job to go make it happen. And this is a great example of this is even just like a promotion. I want a promotion. And too often people ask for promotions when they want the promotion. You know, it takes like 6 months to get a promote, like more than
Or
that.
more.
Six
You
to
gotta set
12
the
months to
stage.
get. Yeah, because there's processes in an organization. There's things that need to happen. You have to showcase your talent to, skip level managers. Like you have to get cross collaboration champion or cross collaborative champions. Like there's a bunch of things that you need to have done for you to get a promotion. And so often people are like, I want it now. And then they get angry at their leader for not being able to make it happen.
Right.
Well, you didn't give the leader the chance to make it happen. And so when we talk about self-leadership, what we're really saying is, are you leading yourself in a way that is going to help you achieve the goals that you want? We can add another bit of that, which is, are you doing it in a way that aligns with your values? So you're actually going to be fulfilled when you achieve it. And so do you feel empowered? Do you know that you are the one that has permission to take steps forward in your career, to be proactive? And do you feel accountable? So after you tell your boss something, you don't think your boss has it. You bring it up to your boss again the next week or in 2 weeks, and you bring it up again with progress updates. And so there's this facet of accountability probably is even more than the facet of empowerment, honestly, because it's no one else is there to is to help you accomplish your goals in your career, even if they're hired to do that. Like you ultimately are the person that needs to lead yourself. So that's how I would define it.
Love it. Absolutely. And can you share what kind of conversations you recommend when you're having these one-on-one conversations, either with your boss or your skip level boss? Like what should be some of the messages or bullet points or talking points that you need to ensure to include in those types of conversations with those influencers?
Yeah. So I have this model called the team model of managing to motivate. And I actually go through it mainly with leaders. It's a model that helps leaders craft an environment that is going to motivate and engage their employees to accomplish whatever goals the organization has.
All right. And you said it's a team model, TEAM?
TEAM. Yep.
Okay, gotcha. Tell
Now,
me about
an individual can use it for themselves as well.
All right.
Because you can you want to curate an environment that's going to help you make progress and be engaged and be satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first pillar is trust. And so for you to be able to create anything that you want to create in an organization, you're going to have to build trust with your leader. You're going to have to build trust with your peers. Like you really can't do it alone. And that means that you're going to have to do things that create trust, such as give positive feedback, manage up and give positive feedback to your peers on a regular basis. It's that simple. Create open lines of communication. So make sure that you're talking to them, support them with things that they need. So it's kind of like the basis of like, I'm there for you. I'm going to follow up. I'm going to be reliable, show up consistently. So if I say something, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to help you understand how I'm feeling and be open and honest with you. So let's say we have trust. Now, all of a sudden now you have a lot more tools at your disposal than if you didn't have trust. Right. And so then we can move on to the other pillars, and I'll pause for a second.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Let's go with the E.
Okay. So E is environment. So for you to be successful in your role, you need to be in touch with the relationships that are going to bring positivity and help you support you towards your goals in your role. You're also going to have to distance yourself from mediate relationships that bring negativity and that are draining or that are poisonous. You're also going to need resources to help you do your job. So let's say if you have a remote job, but you don't have a webcam and don't have internet, I mean, it's that simple. As I'm talking about resources, you're going to need training guides or the right applications. And you're also going to need potentially the empowerment to deal with difficult clients if you're client facing. Like there's just anything that you can think of that is a resource for you to do your job. You're going to need those things. And so you need to feel empowered and accountable to go ask for those things and to create that environment for yourself to be able to do your job.
Yep, love that.
A is the actual work. And so for you to feel like you're growing in your career, you have to do work that is potentially challenging and that stretches you a little bit and leads you towards your career goals in terms of whatever title or projects you want to work on. So you have to know what that is. You have to be clear about that. And you need
Right.
to have conversations with your leader about what those projects are so that you can actually start working towards them. And you need to do that in advance. You also need to work on things that you feel align with your skills and your passions, because you have to feel confident in the work that you do. And you also have to feel like it sparks part of you, and not all of your work, but some of it. And you
Right.
have to find ways to delegate, to stop, or to change the work that you don't like. Because what we're doing is we're creating an environment again that is going to help propel us forwards and help fill us up and create energy within us. And if we're doing work that drains us or we think is stupid or no one cares about, it's not going to happen. And very often I have leaders that are in meetings that are completely draining. And this is a meeting they think they have to be a part of. Or one, they actually end up not going to the meeting anymore because they don't actually have to be there. But two, what they can do is sandwich the meeting and put a little bit more buffer space before and after the meeting itself to find ways to fill them up. So it's like being more conscious about the work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And then M is just our perception around work. Very often, if we don't like our job, if we think it's pointless, we have a bad experience with a coworker or a leader, we let that experience just like fester. It becomes like a
Mhm.
leech. And the longer we let it fester, it just grows, right? It sucks and sucks, and it becomes this big beast of a thing that now we can't get rid of. It's become our program. It's become our story. It's become a belief.
Right.
And so if we can remind ourselves around the meaning of our work, why we went into this industry in the first place, why we work for the organization that we're a part of, the impact of the work that we have, the impact of the people that we have on the people around us, we're so much more likely to be able to do the things we need to do to continuously make progress as well as be happy. I wake up, I'm a leadership and career coach. I wake up and sometimes I go, why am I doing this? And I have to stop and I have to remember that I love the stuff that I do. And it's
Yeah.
like, it's not just automatic,
Right.
So
Right.
it's all it's conscious. It's if we let ourselves roll with the waves of life, we're going to get, swept away. So
That's right.
part of it is making sure that we have a big boat that we're building and that we're in.
No, you're so spot on with that, and I love that. So we're going to add your team model to our leadership playbook. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I want to take it one step further, and please disagree if you don't with what I'm about to say. But I think the conversations definitely should be centered around the trust environment, the actual work, and the meaning of the work, right? But part of self leadership is also taking ownership of bringing it home for, if you're in the employed, for your boss and your skip level boss as well, in a way, meaning, so after you all have these rich conversations, you as an individual should take the initiative to summarize what you all talked about in a few bullet points. Talk about what you agreed upon. When you have those conversations of additional things your boss would love to see, also document, what needs to be taken off your plate, kind of thing, so that your work is meaningful, you're having the right amount of time, and you can sequester the right amount of energy to get these kind of things done. I've seen the most powerful impact on a person taking the ownership of summarizing it, sending it back an email to their boss or skip level boss and say, this is what I've heard. I really appreciate your time. This is what I've heard us talk about and agree upon. Do you agree as well? Feel free to edit or what have you. What this does, it's not so much as it being an email per se, but it puts your leader on notice that you're very committed, you're serious about what you're doing, you're following up, and you expect them to also keep you top of mind as well and be prepped for the next meeting that you have. It's amazing when someone feels like they are on the line or on the spot for helping you to grow your career, and you're so committed and you're showing that energy. It's amazing how they keep you top of mind in those performance conversations and discussions. That's what I have witnessed. But tell me, have you seen that as well? Or if you don't think that's a great approach and there's a better one.
When I was the head of talent development at Technova, one of the projects I worked on was building, establishing, and implementing a new performance management process.
Mm-hmm.
So quarterly reviews. there's a lot of components of that. One of them was goal setting,
Mm-hmm.
and we implemented an MIT process, a measurable, important, and time bound. And one of the issues that we had in the first quarter, which we made sure was solved in the second quarter, was that people were surprised by the fact that they didn't meet their goals. So whether there was training that had to happen with the managers, but more so there was training that had to happen in the organization. As an employee, if you get assigned a goal, your responsibility for that goal is that you understand it, you believe in it, and you check in on the progress of that goal with your manager and leader and share anything that changes or anything that needs to change. And you take full ownership over it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've seen in the last organization, what I see in general, is that people don't fully realize, this is a generalization,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
that when they're given something or when they have a job, you own that and are responsible for everything that's a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you go into your performance review, it's not, oh, I forgot I had that goal. Or, you know what, we had some things change during the quarter. Let me tell you what happened. I think we should still count that goal as achieved. No, you're going in with a full understanding that you've either achieved that goal or you've already changed that goal, or you know that you haven't met that goal and you're going to have to deal with it. And so like this, it's this full accountability. So the accountability piece comes in that says you have to do your job and you have to show their leader that you're serious about your job. And if not, you deal with the consequences. And to your point about showing up and like taking notes and sending that over to your boss is incredible. I worked with a lot of individuals on managing up, and one of the things
Yes.
that we implemented was a shared document for one-on-ones, and it
Mm-hmm.
changed their game. It changed the game with their leader because the leader now can reference it for
Yes.
information.
Yes.
It's a good place to say like, look, we talked about this 2 weeks ago, because leaders forget stuff. Like it happens all the time.
Yeah.
And then it's such a great opportunity for an individual to show that they are leading themselves and being serious.
That's right.
And most important, they're making their boss's job easier.
Yeah.
Which honestly, that's why you're hired. The only reason you have your job is because you make your boss's job easier. If you stop doing that, you should not have a job.
That's right. You were hired to take some of the, something off your boss's plate to do so that they can, focus on something else. So you're right. If you're not bringing value, you shouldn't even be there at all. And that's a wonderful tool. I don't think I've ever been in an organization that's had a shared tool. They've had shared, feedback, but not a shared tool to work off of. But what I love about that is, and there's a lot of executives that are probably going to throw tomatoes at me in a minute, but when we're in these performance discussions or succession planning meetings, quite honestly, it is the individuals that are in that room that are most prepared, that can justify their staff, why their staff is ready for a major move. Those who are most prepared are the ones that usually win out. It's not that, oh, Karen's a good fit. It's, Karen has demonstrated this XYZ as evidenced by, ABC. Those are the ones that end up winning the extra funds to allow Karen to move to something or another. Have you seen that as well?
I was incredibly disappointed in leadership before at an organization that I was helping.
Uh-huh.
And I had conversations. I was not part of the calibration session. So a calibration session during, performance reviews is basically making sure that there isn't a lot in bias, right, within the
Right.
ratings themselves, as well as trying to understand them, looking at outliers, etc.
Yes.
And I wasn't in there, but heard feedback from our chief people officer at the time that there were individuals in the meeting, executive leadership, when
Mm-hmm.
asked, so why are you giving this rating to this person? And they go, well, because that's what I was told. How can you would like, it was almost mind-boggling, because it's like, wait a
Yeah.
second, hold on. Your responsibility is your people. You are now submitting these ratings to help your people, and you don't understand them.
Yeah.
And so it is scary, because yes, you're right. If a leader, an executive leader or a leader, is looking to help someone get promoted or even get someone out of the organization due to disciplinary issues, and they don't have records or reasons behind what they're trying to push forwards, then they're not going to be successful. And so you as an individual, as an employee, if you want to make sure that you're successful, give that information to your leader.
That's right. That is so spot on. Wow, I blinked, Ben, and time is almost up, but I have two more quick questions for you before we wrap up this episode. The first one is, and you kind of mentioned it earlier, but as you know, I wrote a book on leadership execution, and there were 7 tactics that really resonated based out of our research that really definitely, we had more than 7, obviously, as part of the research, but there were 7 that were really renowned across industries and no matter your level of leadership. And so we decided to double down on understanding those. But I was just wondering if one of those 7 tactics kind of jumped out and resonated with you by chance.
This is super relevant. I've been giving a couple different workshops on executive presence lately. And I've had some slight variations of how I described presence depending on the type of workshop. So one was in person though, and I got to have a lot of fun and I got to like jump around and do a bunch of stuff. So in that workshop, we talked about executive presence as having 3 main kind of keys. And so one of them was mindset. The other one is vocal communication. The other one is energy. And as a leader, really your job is to be seen and perceived as a leader so you can create followers to help guide then those individuals towards the organization's goals. And if you don't have executive presence, and then other workshops, I define it as vision, credibility, reliability, and presence itself. If you don't have the trust of the people around you, if they don't know what you stand for, if they don't believe that you're credible or a subject matter expert, and they don't think that you show up consistently and are aligned and don't really have a presence that, shows confidence at all, then you're not going to convince people or get them motivated or engaged or inspired. And so if I was to say there's one thing that's crucial and really important, it would be executive presence. And I'm really happy to see that on this list.
Oh, thank you. Good. And let's round out by sharing with our audience, what is one piece of advice or tip that someone in your life has given you that still resonates with you today?
One piece of advice.
Or something you observed.
I almost want to talk about myself, but I'm going to, because
putting you on the spot, right?
There are certain types of individuals, right? There's individuals that maybe really kind of get behind somebody else and they listen and follow them. And I'm kind of a sponge where I just surround myself with as many individuals as possible and try to learn from all of them at once. And then it just feels like it's my information, which is probably
well, let me change the question. What does it take for you to lead at the top of your game?
Yeah, what it takes me to lead at the top of my game.
What does it take for you?
Is presence. And I think it takes that for everybody, honestly. And it's very easy to be distracted. I mean, I'm sitting in front of a computer with 2 screens. I have people texting me right now about a home that we just closed on. I have a cat that's luckily sleeping on a heating pad next to me. I have a dog that sometimes runs into this room. I have a partner not too far away that knocked on the door during this interview itself. I myself have a bunch of other, meetings today. And I was literally just talking to my editor earlier about a book that I'm trying to publish this year. And one of the sections that we were going over was about presence. And so maybe this is why I'm bringing this up, but I do think it's critical and important. Leaders, and if anyone is striving to grow as a leader, pay attention during your meetings and look at the executives. They are, even virtually or not, they are looking at you. They are looking at everybody. They are not on their phones. And it's amazing how focused they are. I mean, they at least seem. And in a meeting itself, they also are focused. And they understand that their job is to be present, period. And I think individuals that are striving to grow as leaders, and maybe some leaders too, try to do more because they think their job is more so doing the work. But when you are trying to exude executive presence and to lead, you have to be present.
At all times. at all times. Well, that's a perfect way to end our show. Thank you, Ben, for sharing these great words of wisdom with our audience. We really appreciate you.
Oh, it's been a blast. This is so much fun. Thanks
All
for having me.
right. Thanks so much. Bye-bye. I hope you enjoyed our conversation today with Dr. Benjamin Ritter, founder of Live for Yourself Consulting. Links to his bio, his entry into our leadership playbook, and additional resources can be found both in the show notes, on your favorite platform of choice, and on the website leadyourgamepodcast.com. And now for Karen's take on today's topic of the role of self-leadership. According to the World Economic Forum, research shows that those who demonstrate advanced self-leadership skills generally perform higher in roles of greater responsibility, are more effective at resolving interpersonal conflicts, are more likely to be seen as a true leader, and receive more promotions and recognition. So to jumpstart your planning on how to improve your self-leadership skills, try answering these questions that I'm going to rattle off to you. Number 1, ask yourself, can I describe the environment that brings out both my best self and my worst self? Number 2, do I understand my strengths and how to leverage them? 3, do I understand my weaknesses and how to mitigate them? 4, do I try to understand other situations before making judgments? 5, do I seek diverse perspectives when encountering complex situations? 6, am I capable of managing others when they have defensive reactions? 7, do I regularly practice reflection to learn from my actions? 8, do I have a social network that supports my learning and growth? And 9, do I create strategies for overcoming recurring challenges to my development? If there are any of these questions that you have not addressed, now's the time to make a plan to do so. Take some time and think about how you can better use your time to sharpen your self-leadership skills in order to better lead others and affect real change in your sliver of the world. Now, if you're listening to the show, know that this podcast is not free. However, we don't want any money. We're probably one of the only podcast groups that don't. However, our only price for admission is that you honor a pact among us friends. And the pact involves just subscribing to us on your favorite podcast platform of choice and share our podcast with just one friend that you think might be interested. We really appreciate it and it will help us grow our reach. I'm all about better leadership in the world and I hope you are too. Well, thanks for listening and see you next week. And that's our show for today. Thank you for listening to the Lead at the Top of Your Game podcast, where we help you lead your seat at any employer, business, or industry in which you choose to play. You can check out the show notes, additional episodes, bonus resources, and also submit guest recommendations on our website at leadyourgamepodcast.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn by searching for the name Karen Rhodes, with Karen being spelled Karan. And if you like the show, the greatest gift you can give would be to subscribe and leave a rating on your podcast platform of choice. This podcast has been a production of Shockingly Different Leadership, a global consultancy which helps organizations execute their people, talent development, and organizational effectiveness initiatives on an on-demand project or contract basis. Huge thanks to our production and editing team for a job well done. Goodbye for now.